Has it been a while since you played Destiny 2, or has it just been yesterday? No matter which type of player you are, whether you're a completely new player, whether you're a player who's been away for a long period of time, or just a short period of time, we're going to do an overview of the basic changes that have happened in Destiny 2. The way I'm going to do this video is, if you're someone who hasn't played, let's say, since D2 launch, you're going to watch the entire video from beginning to end. If you're someone who has played in Final Shape, but maybe you don't know what changes are coming for Edge of Fate, you'll listen to the end. So again, just look for the timestamps in the video, depending on where you left off. If you watch it in order past the place where you left off, you'll be able to get all the major changes no matter when you left in Destiny 2. So first off, let's talk about year 1 of Destiny 2. Again, that was the last time you played. So depending on when you left then, that was really the year that almost killed Destiny. There was a drought in content and some of the systems were pretty basic. If you're one of those that gave up on the game or now interested in playing again, boy, are there some changes to walk through to prepare you for the state of the game today. First off, remember the double primary meta. Who can forget that? Well, that's gone. Destiny moved from that abomination to what is now kinetic energy and power slots that offer a great deal of flexibility to your gameplay. In addition, random rolls came back from Destiny 1. So basically, instead of having the same gun no matter what it was when it dropped, you could get random rolls, so you could get different abilities and perks, and that again allowed people to get more deeper into gameplay, because if you grinded the game, you could get the rolls that you liked. To add depth to the game, triumph, seals, and titles were added. This allows completionists to grind every possible area of the game for triumph score and seals and titles to aspire to an ultimate form of swag. You know, there's still to this day, there's a title called Shadow that I still don't have, that I'm frustrated I have, but there's other things I have that other people don't, that I'm glad that I was there to do those specific things. So again, it adds the ability to stay current with the game. Collections were added as well, so that anything that you collected in the game, whether it's an emblem, a ship, a shader, a gun, as long as it's not random rolls, that you could go back and collect them. A lot of times people use it as sort of a piggy bank. For instance, if you don't want to fill your vault with exotics, you can pick up an exotic within the collection instead of having to store it. So again, that comes in handy. Gambit was added to the game, which is a PvE PvP combo mode that I personally enjoy a great deal. Not everyone does. You kill enemies, you pick up their motes, you bank the motes, and depending on where you do that, you actually can invade and go to the other side and kill not the enemies, but the actual PvP style combatants, the other guardians who are in the game. Come back, continue to do that, kill the primevals, and then take down the boss. Again, personally, it's a lot of fun, but again, it's subjective. Not everyone particularly cares for this particular mode. To simplify XP gains, bounties were added back to the game, give you something to chase and to make XP gains simple to understand for every player. This system has a large overhaul in Edge of Fate, more to come on that, but it is something that is still used to this day. The annual pass was added, and this allowed you basically to simplify how you bought the game. So basically you would pay one price and you'd get a continuous drip of content through multiple seasons. This was to avoid some of the lack of content that happened during year 1 of Destiny 2. Champions were added, and they're not always the most popular thing, and now they're really a core item in the game. You can choose from barrier champions, which have a shield, and you have to stun it once the shield comes up to take them down. Overload champions, which regenerate health and warp around if not stunned. And unstoppables that will bear down on you if they're not stunned. The core to this now is that with champions, you basically have to use particular either mods and guns, perks, abilities, and we'll talk about that a little bit in this further on in this video, but there are different ways to stun champions, and they're pretty much scattered throughout the game now. Now to continue on, if you last played in Forsaken, things have changed quite a bit. Armor 2.0 had rolled out. Armor 2.0 gave you things like to chase like stats, specific energy burns, and abilities that really helped you get deeper into build crafting. Armor 2.0 was introduced, which allowed you to basically take your armor instead of just being something that you collected and get specific rolls on stats, energy burns, and abilities. Now, I won't go into this in great detail because this system is drastically overhauled with Edge of Fate, and towards the end of this video, when I talk about the Edge of Fate section, I will go into that. But this was the beginning of that evolution. The seasonal artifact was rolled out. This artifact was leveled up through XP grinding and required unlocking lower levels to get to upper level mods. Now, some of that's changed over time, but that's how it was rolled out immediately. These mods could then be applied and used in combat. The mods then went away each season. This provided motivation to continue to grind every season and change the meta so that the game didn't grow stale. The artifact also had mods that allowed for additional champion stunning options, etc. And towards the end of the of the artifact, typically that's where your best mods, your most game-breaking mods were located at. And that's why they're at the end, because it took you a little bit to get there. Finishers were added. This was something that would allow you to do most of the damage to an enemy, and then you would see like a yellow dot that would show on top of it. Once you hit that yellow dot, you would basically press a button on your controller or keyboard, and you would finish him. You would do a sort of motion. You could buy different types of these motions to finish him. Now, it seems pretty insignificant, but it can really help in some cases when you're doing certain activities in the game. Also, doing a finishing activity on an enemy can actually lead to some build crafting, because it can actually cause certain abilities to spawn out of that. So again, it is something that is a key component of the game. A battle pass was added in Destiny 2 called the Season Pass, and it was rolled out. It would allow you to gain special buffs and rewards based on XP gains in the season. There was a paid and free pass to support the new free-to-play New Light experience. This allowed players to test out Destiny before they buy it, with some content the game continues to be free, including some raids and dungeons to this day. And again, this is similar to what other games have done with free-to-play functionality, and with Edge of Fate, there will be additional free-to-play stuff that's going to be brought into the game. If you last played in Shadowkeep, there are some radical changes after this point in the game. Remember, after Shadowkeep was the first DLC where Destiny was kind of on their own from Activision. A new Darkness subclass called Stasis was rolled out in Beyond Light. This subclass dove deep into crowd control through freezing elements that allow you to control the battlefield, and was really broken in the game for some time in PvP and even PvE. And to this day, there's some pretty powerful builds that you can do with Stasis. With Stasis, the subclass process was simplified and also made deeper, the addition of aspect and fragments. Now, it seems like a conflicting thing. It was simplified in that over time you had a consistent process throughout the game, but it added a lot of other features that would allow you to do deeper build crafting. Aspects are specific to your subclass and allow you to gain deep and wide customization of your builds. These are very specific things, and there are choices you have to make. You can only use so many of these, so depending on the type of build, you have to be very specific. Fragments are opened up across your stasis abilities on all your characters. So again, these are more general things that you can do, but again, even with these are choices because you only have so many of them. These open up gameplay in the campaign. So basically, you play through the campaign. It's like the scene of the day. And based on how much you play, you unlock those abilities, which is a blessing and a curse. And some of the DLCs, they got the mix right. And the first DLC of Beyond Light, when they did this, it was a slog trying to get everything unlocked. So again, it's a blessing and a curse. Because a lot of times it felt like you were doing fetch quests to gain everything. Lost sectors allowed you to start, if they had a upper tier of them. So basically ones at power level where you were capped, and where your loadouts were capped. But with these, if you finished them on solo, you could get a chance at getting exotics, and they were on a knockout system. So this was a good way for a while to be able to actually go in and get exotics free in the game. Finally, due to growing challenges of the game around stability, some content was vaulted, and they called this the Destiny Content Vault. So at the time, Titan IO, Mercury, Mars, and Leviathan won. This model now retires content every year. So that doesn't mean when you buy a DLC, you're going to lose a destination. In fact, they haven't removed destinations in quite a while. What it does typically mean is that the content that you had during the season, the seasonal content, a lot of that's going to go away. But specifically DCV, every season, normally your seasonal content disappears, and every once in a while you'll have a destination disappear, but that doesn't typically happen these days. If you last played in Beyond Light, there were some really impressive changes that happened after this point in the game. Bungie started getting kind of their mojo as far as grinding some new things and kind of radically changing the game. Weapon crafting was rolled out. This allowed you to collect what they called red borders from activities to earn a pattern that you craft in a weapon. So typically, you would get the red borders. You have to get like 4 or 5 of them. Once you got that, you had a pattern. Think about the patterns as similar if you were in Destiny 1. When you used to have patterns for like ships and things like that, there were special missions for that. Think of it similar to that. You would then level that weapon up. So you would craft it, you would level that weapon up, and you could unlock any roll in the gun and eventually enhanced version. So what was nice about this, instead of having to have 45 versions of a weapon, you could grind to get the patterns. Once you get the patterns, you could get it crafted. And once you did that, it's locked in. At any point, you could re-roll the gun. This allowed you not to keep 67, 70 versions of a particular gun because you're worried about a particular perk getting hot at some point. You have it locked in. At any point, you could even delete that crafted weapon and recraft it later. You're just going to need the materials to do that. So again, one of the reasons for that, there was a lot of complaints about the amount of grinding in the game, and this kind of simplified some of that, and it also allowed you to conserve vault space. The Legendary campaign was rolled out. And again, this is similar to the Halo franchise, where you play at a harder version of the campaign, but then you start at a fairly high power level with having to grind out bounties and activities. This was immensely popular, worked really well, and still to this day is kind of the cornerstone of the best content within Destiny 2. This supported many teams becoming raid ready, and instead of them, and you still potentially might have to do some bounties, maybe you want to get a little higher level than other people, but you didn't have to do as much of that because it kind of evened the playing field as far as getting to base power level. All of the Light subclasses were rolled out via Light 3.0 over the period of year. So this treatment gave Void, Solar, and Arc their own aspects and fragments, which really opened up build crafting to an entirely new level and really allowed the developers to specialize each season around themes that went deep into build crafting. So now, because you'd potentially say, okay, this next season, we're going to do your seasonal pass, and we're going to, or the artifact, and we're going to say, we're going to make this around Arc and Strand. Well, then they could basically give you mods for that or perks for that would allow you to do that, and then they would basically make changes to the aspects and fragments. So it opened up a lot of really cool things, and that was one of the best eras in Destiny because some of those particular items were just completely broken, some of them even to this day. Also, verbs, which are standard terms related to aspect and fragments like radiant or jolted, those were added as stun options for champions. So you didn't specifically have to have mods to counter them anymore. You could build craft around them because sometimes it's difficult to have all three of the type of guns you would need for all three type of champions. But now you potentially didn't need any guns because you could basically use abilities off of your aspects and fragments in different builds to stun champions. And with that, you could also build craft into it, which would deepen your build crafting in the game. Now, if you last played in Witch Queen, which is an incredible DLC, you have missed out on quite a bit, but you are getting closer to being current with the game. First off, skimmers were introduced. These were like sparrows, but offer you the ability to surf through the sky, similar to what was used in the Lightfall campaign, which obviously you're not familiar with anyway. But basically, it allows you, instead of just taking your sparrow and being able to do things on the ground, you could basically very easily skate over large areas using this skimmer. So it was basically a better version of a sparrow. This sounds pretty minor, but it was one of the best additions to the game, and people loved it for a long period of time. Armor no longer has specific elemental energy, which allow a great deal of flexibility in build crafting. Prior to this, mods for build crafting were tied to specific energy, Arc, Solar, Void types that would limit how you would build craft. Now you don't have to worry about that. You had complete freedom. All you need to really worry about for your armor is making sure it had really good stats. That was really your focus. Strand was introduced, which was another darkness subclass that allowed you to almost unlimited motion across the battlefield. It was really, the whole thing was around motion, being able to move around, again, similar to like the skimmers. And again, Lightfall is very much into this. This fed again into the skimmers recently added to the game. Strand, like Stasis before, it was completely broken when it first introduced the game, but still is a major component in a lot of key builds that are in the game. Loadouts were added. As Destiny continued to become a deeper RPG with the very intricate builds, it became difficult to keep track of those without third-party utilities like DIM or things like that. Now, in-game, you could save builds and swap them on the fly. Now, Destiny being Destiny, they also made sure to add a little bit of a grind to it where to build out some of these loadouts, you'd have to move up the Guardian ranks, which I'll talk about here a little bit later. But you have to go up on that to basically build out some of those. But basically, most of that you get by playing the game. But it was really nice because if you need to swap out in the middle of an activity, instead of going and getting dim or something like that and being able to do it, you basically just go in the game and go to loadouts and swap your build like live in the game. So it was really a cool thing. A new armor charge system was implemented to replace Charge of Light elemental well builds. In this case, you could earn armor charges that acted very similar to Charge of Light to activate portions of a specific build. One reason for this was that the oppressive nature of these builds in the game. Instead of continuing to power creep activities, this allowed them to kind of flatten the build environment and also simplify. Because the other thing is, if you were a new player, it was very intimidating to figure out which mods. With this new system, it really simplified how you did builds and was a lot easier to explain to people. So that really helped out too. The seasonal artifact now moved to a model that once you unlocked a specific item in the artifact, it didn't require a mod to utilize. It became a perk. This passive perk you could use in the game assuming you met certain requirements. So instead of going in and slotting a mod, you basically, once you unlocked it, it was unlocked on your character and you were good. If you last played in Lightfall, you were almost caught up, but you did miss a few things. With Final Shape Prismatic rolled out. Now, Prismatic is hard to explain for people who are new to the game because it seems like it's something that they wouldn't do. But again, I think they really, Bungie in some respects was kind of boxed into a corner because they'd already done Arc 3.0, Solar. They had done all the aspect and fragment treatments to everything. And it was really difficult for them to do something game-breaking. So they decided to really do something game-breaking. Prismatic is simply the most broken thing in Destiny 2 history. Imagine taking the best of both your dark and light subclasses and then adding the ability to add another super-like ability called Transcendence to decimate the battlefield in a way never before seen in the game. Want to play with a Void Super, an Arc Grenade, and aspects and fragments from Darkness subclasses? You can do it now. To say the best builds are built off Prismatic, and Bungie still struggles to balance it to this day. Exotic class items rolled out through the dual Destiny game mode. Exotic class items let you take the best portions of exotics across all characters and utilize them on any character class. This is limited to 2 exotic armor abilities per exotic class items, and they were also toned down a little bit, but conclude an exotic from a hunter and one from a titan or warlock. And build crafting was brought to an entirely new level because basically you could use the best exotic abilities. Again, not everything was rolled out, just some across multiple different subclasses and character classes into one exotic class item. So again, totally broken. Fireteam Fighter was implemented and allowed you to LFG in the game itself. It isn't perfect, but it's a big step forward. Select your activity, select your requirements, set whether you want to be on mic or off mic, and whether you need an application. Application means you have to review them, or you just want people to auto-join, and get your fire team in the game. So again, this is a really nice way, instead of having to go to Discords or Reddit posts or other places or third-party apps, where you could find people in game. And again, it's not perfect, but it does help out a great deal. Fireteam Power was implemented, which allows you to bring friends who haven't been in the game in a while. And if you're a returning player, this is a really cool thing. So let's say you want to go in a raid. And let's say you have 5 players and they're bringing a friend that hasn't played in a while. But that player hasn't played in like 3 years and their light level is like 300 below yours. Well, it doesn't matter. When you go in the activity, what it's going to do is it's going to take the highest person in the activity and it's going to bring everyone else within 5 power levels of that character. Now, you're still going to be, if you're the player who hasn't been in a while, you're still going to be at a disadvantage because you're probably not going to have great builds and things like that because you haven't been in a while. And you're also going to be 5 levels under, but it's still a great way to bring people back into the game without feeling that they have to grind like 4 DLCs to get to where you are. So this was a really great addition. Allows basically anyone, even if they haven't played very often, to hop in with their friends. Legendary shards were removed from the game, simplifying the game economy and focusing on Glimmer. And the Glimmer cap was raised to 500k. Now, I haven't talked in this video a lot about all the different changes in currencies, but Legendary Shards has been there from the very beginning. And for instance, if you're one of those people who were here when they had the Forges and you did the AFK, the AFK to the Forges, you might have hundreds of thousands of shards still sitting in your character. Well, it doesn't matter, they're gone now. If you made it this far in the video, then you're pretty much caught up. However, I'm now going to go over what's changed in Edge of Fate and Renegades. Melding those two together, this will give you a good update on what's happened in the last 6 months of the game. Armor 3.0 is rolling out. This will change how you utilize armor forever. Stats are moving to simplified stats that make sense to new players. Weapons instead of mobility, health instead of resilience, etc. These stats now range from 0 to 200. Each point of the stat affects ability regen. In the past, it was tiers of 10. It's each point at this point. If you gain around 70 with a stat in question, it will function much as it does today. Between 70 and 100, it will act a little bit better. You'll get a little bit more utility out of it. Above 100, it actually starts getting special abilities. So for instance, for the grenade ability, if you go above 100, your grenades actually do more damage. So again, each of these stats have a similar effect. Armor will roll with a spiky primary stat and a secondary stat, simplifying armor grind. Armor sets will roll with affinities, and again, this is at the upper tiers, and we'll talk about tiers in a little bit, where if you have 2 pieces of a specific armor, you'll get a benefit. And if you get 4 pieces, you'll get a greater benefit. Again, this is to allow you to kind of get into the fantasies of certain types of play styles. Now, this isn't popular for everyone because at launch, it's going to be limited into which affinity things roll out. But again, I'm assuming Bungie over time is using this, so each season they can start building into specific types of, again, to change the meta. Because keeping players in the game really is about changing the meta over time. Otherwise, it gets stale. I do think long term this will benefit everyone. It'll just mean that in many cases you're going to have to grind out some new armor. I would not get rid of your current armor because I think your current armor will still be, especially if upper tier armor, will still be viable for the short term. Now with that, we talked about gear tiers, and gear tiers are coming. Gear now drops from level 1 to level 5. Your best armor today would be around, again, your best armor would be around a tier 3 in the new system based on stats. Tier 4 and 5 have higher stats than can be achieved today and additional abilities to add mods. Now, this also applies to weapons, not just to armor. So for weapons, as you progress, basically, if you think about the crafting system today, or if you're not familiar with that, basically you can get additional mods, you can get enhanced version of mods, and then you can get multi-rows of mods. As you go up to tiers 4 and 5, that's the effects you'll get. You'll get mods, you'll get enhanced mods on your guns, and then you may get up to 3 rows of mods you can select for. So again, your best weapons today are probably not your exotics, but your legendaries are probably like a tier 3, right? But as with the new content rolling out, you'll be able to eventually retire some of those weapons and go to tier 4 and tier 5 weapons that are very similar. The portal is the new system within Edge of Fate that allows you to access pretty much everything in the game. This first area you're seeing is a seasonal hub. This is where you're going to get weekly challenges, get rewards. Basically anything you do in the game that you are doing kind of challenges, you will get some sort of benefit here. This is kind of your daily hub. This is where daily, weekly hub, where you should go in to look for activities. Now, to get these rewards in the seasonal hub, you have to do activities. And you'll see here that there's a number of different places you can go. First off, there's solo ops. Solo ops is an area where basically as a solo player, you can do anything basically in the game. And what you're doing is you're trying to get higher level gear. To get higher level gear, you basically use things that benefit you and things that take away from you, whether they're banes or they're things that heal you, things like that. And you'll see on the right-hand side, you're getting different ratings. This is a copper rating, which means that you're going to get a 25 level with whatever gear. And there's bonus gear here that's a drop, that's a sniper weapon. So one nice thing is you can not only get exactly what you want, but you can see exactly what the power is and the tier of gear that you're getting. So this is a really nice addition. So if you're a solo player, you've always wanted to go in and play solo without having to go to a fire team, this is an easy way to grind up without a fire team. Next, you're going to see fire team ops. And fire team ops, it's basically similar to solo ops, except in here, you're going to be doing fire team type activities where you're a player matchmake. So basically, same sort of thing, but you're playing with other players. Then you have pinnacle ops. Pinnacle ops are basically, for the right now, they're primarily the exotic missions we have in the game, but they're supposed to be higher tier content that will give you better rewards. Again, for now, just exotic missions. So again, and then you see Crucible. If you're a PvP player and you want to play through PvP, that's the way to do it to get leveled up. So power post Edge of Fate has become much simpler. Really, when you get into the game, obviously, when Edge of Fate launched, you're at 10. But ongoing, depending on when you watch this video, you're going to have a seasonal, what used to be kind of the soft cap of 200. To get to 200, you're basically going to play the game. Any activity you play will drop gear. When you get to higher power gear, all you do is use enhancement cores, not upgrade modules, to upgrade it to a higher piece of gear. So again, that's a lower cost, which is nice to begin with. So let's say you get to the 200. You're what used to be the soft cap, but basically that's your cap that you have every season. Post that cap, it gets very simple. XP is no longer involved in power, so you don't have to worry about that. But you're like, oh, how do you get higher than 200? Well, you get seasonal power. Seasonal power is obtained through primarily playing the portal or replaying missions and finding secret chests. Those actually will give you the highest. But if you want to go into portal, again, you can look at my other video on the portal. Portal is very simple. If you go in the portal, you can basically go in and say, okay, I'm going to play this activity. I'm going to set this as the activity modifiers. Based on that, you'll get an actual understanding of, at the end of that activity, what type of powerful gear you get. One of the good things and the bad things of Destiny 2 for the longest time was the bounty system. Some people liked it because you could hoard bounties for the next season. Some people hated it because you had to go in, go to a vendor, pick up bounties, and then specify how you were going to play. Well, Bungie is trying to fix that with the new order system. With orders, you don't have to go anywhere. Basically, if you go into your seasonal hub, you'll see that you have orders automatically assigned to you. They're on the left-hand side. Those orders appear to generate based on what you're currently using. So for instance, I had a submachine gun. I had an order that had submachine gun that showed up automatically. So that part is nice. Instead of having to customize and figure out your loadout to fit the bounties you were going to have, you'll have them, for the most part, assigned based on what you're currently using. In my gameplay with this, I've actually found it pretty rewarding. They complete very quickly, and once you complete one, you go in, you hit the payout, and that's when you get your XP and your bright dust. Think of these as your repeatable bounties that you used to have in the game. Once you do that, then you'll have another order assigned to you. So again, player engagement is a lot better because you don't have to go find, or even new players, you don't have to go out find, where do I get these bounties, which vendor do I go to? Basically, it incentivizes you just to continue to play the game. As you're doing that, you'll notice at the bottom, you'll have a legendary meter. This powers up over time based on the orders you've done, and you can get a legendary order. The legendary order will give you additional bright dust and additional XP. Then, over time, you can get an exotic. This is fairly rare, but an exotic one will give you additional, again, XP and bright dust. Your bright dust is capped out with your common and legendary to 1,000 a week. After that limit, common will no longer give bright dust. Legendary will give 10. Your exotic will give you a 6,000 bright dust per season. So these are not things you're going to see very often. But once you do another one, if you go over that limit, you can get 30 after you hit that 6,000 limit. In addition, not only do you have the orders, which again are kind of like your repeatable balance sheet in the past, now you have daily and weekly objectives. You already had this in the portal, but now it's on one place where you can see all of them. Your daily objectives are things you want to do, again, daily, to get your weekly rewards, get XP and other things. Your weekly are ones you can do once a week. So again, everything is now in one place. And I would say your daily objectives are more like your standard non-repeatable bounties in the past, and your weekly objectives are more like your XP plus bounties you had in the past. So again, everything's in one place. It's much easier to follow, and it allows you to stay in the game and engaged and figure out exactly what you need to do next to get the XP and bright dust that you need. First off, to get to the shooting range, you're going to go to the portal, and from the portal go to the director, from the director go to the tower. Within the tower, you'll see this little icon that shows up for the shooting range. The shooting range is basically a replacement for something we used to have in the game. It's something that you can utilize to test your builds, test your DPS. You'll notice when you get into in here, you first off have an area that's prismatic, so you can test out any of your prismatic builds. You can get fully prismatic at any point. You can also get your super on demand. Again, this will allow you to test DPS on supers, or crowd control, or things like that. Then you'll notice over here, there's an area where you can actually test out damage. In other words, damage to yourself. So maybe you want to test how damage resistant a build is. And you could actually check over time, like maybe in the past when I'm just getting damaged without my build, this is what damage resistance looks like. But maybe when I do something with my build, this is what damage resistant looks like. So it's really useful and helpful for those who are trying to make survivable builds. When you first look at the enemies, they're basically just punching bags. They're dummies, right? They're not any specific enemy. But you notice on the right-hand side, there's this area we can shoot where you can reset the whole field, and where you can also make them active or inactive. So in other words, are they going to shoot at you or not shoot at you? On the left side, you'll notice there's an area that allows you to change what type of enemy you have. So you can pick the Vex, you can pick whoever you want. Once you have the Vex or whoever played here, you can actually change what type of enemies, what type of, like, do you want some bigger Vex? Do you want some smaller Vex, right? You can do that fairly easily. And again, you can reset everything. The Sieve is a random event that shows up on Kempler. It's very similar to the event that shows up on Neomuna that you can get exotics out of. It comes up on a timer, and you kind of have to wait around a little bit for it. One of the things is, it is required to finish up the Graviton Spike quest. The event is themed off the Drifter, and what you're really doing is you're using Matter Spark to gather a buff by going through lit pylons. When you get that buff, after doing enough of them, you're going to get this extraction buff. With that extraction buff, you then go and kill enemies. While you're killing the enemies, you'll notice that the counter that's in the upper left-hand corner will be going up. Your goal is to try to get to that little circle so you can complete the event. During the event, you'll notice as you get further along, you're actually going to have increasingly more difficult enemies show up to try to block the bank. Okay, this is the bank, kind of like in Gambit. You should, as soon as possible, try to take those out because that's just going to delay you getting through the event. Once you finish this up, loot will drop. There's then a second phase. In the second phase, it's really a big boss and you're just trying to kill him. As you're working on him, you'll notice that he has a bar where it's like he has so much health and then a bar and then a little less health. Once you get to that point, what's going to happen is that drones are going to show up around the arena that are actually going to stop you from doing damage to him. Dealing with drones takes two steps. One, you use the Matter Spark to actually decloak the drone, right? So this is the thing you've done in the past. Once you do that and the drones will show up, you shoot the drones. Once you get all 5 of them, then his shield will come off and you do damage again. And you'll be able to damage the boss and you'll get some loot. If you made it this far, you're caught up on Destiny 2. Destiny 2 is a constantly evolving game, lots of complexities, lots of different systems. Hopefully this video helped you get caught up so you understand how to play the game. And that's the video. If you liked the video, feel free to like the video, subscribe to my channel, join my Discord, and I'll see you Guardians of the Tower.